Michelle Kent, you are currently on a career break, seeing the world. Lucky you. Prior to this, you've held director level roles at Santander and Sainsbury's Bank. Thank you so much for agreeing to this podcast and joining me on Decoding Calm in 15 minutes.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
So this podcast is all about I called it Decoding Calm because I wanted to get inside the minds of senior people in business who seemingly to many people are able to handle the pressure, the stress, the relentless hours, the always onness of a senior job, right? Responsible for many millions of pounds of budgets, responsible for many people making big decisions. And part of my curiosity around this is how much of it do we think is nature? How much of it is nurture? Could we take anybody and turn them into a C-suite performer? Or you kind of born that way? What do you think it was in your case? Do you think you were always destined to be a high flyer in business, or do you think you weren't?
So, no, I had no idea that I would be a high flyer in business, and I wasn't entirely sure what I wanted to do when I left university. So, but I always seem to plan on a 2-year cycle. So, I did my A levels. And then I didn't do particularly well in my A levels. So if I'd wanted to go to university, I might have struggled to go to a good university. So I did a 2-year HND. And then I transferred on to a degree course at a university, got my degree in 2 years, and then joined a graduate scheme, which was 2 years. And that kind of time frame was enough for me to then cope with and
Yeah.
set goals for a 2-year period. Anything longer than that, or some massive ambition to be a CEO of a bank in 25 years, just didn't come into my
Okay.
psyche at all. But in terms of nature and nurture, for me, I think it was a bit of both. I started to lose my hearing in my late teens. And whilst I didn't share that with many people, it made me into a brilliant listener because I needed to pay more attention to what people were saying to me
Yeah.
and how I structured where I sat in meetings, and my hearing couldn't cope with multiple sounds and distractions. So I was very, very focused on listening to people. And I think in my early career, that really helped because I would just be very focused and a very good listener. And I would hear what was being said in meetings, I would hear the nuances around how they were said. And I sometimes left meetings with a completely different takeout from another colleague that had been in that meeting with me. Um, but I was confident that no, what I'd heard and what I'd taken out of it was right. And I would take next steps and actions based on what my interpretation of that meeting was. And 9 times out of 10, it was right. So, and then I, through my physical disability, just became an excellent listener. Um, so that was really good. And then from a nurture perspective, I had a very, very good boss when I first started work who gave me some feedback in one appraisal that I could be too emotional at times. And sometimes he said you could always tell when Michelle was in the office and something was going really well or something really badly because my emotions were really, really high or really low. And I'd be really angry or really happy. And he said he thought that I'd got real potential. And if I had any desire to, continue to progress with a career, I needed to be more balanced in my reactions. And and I took, I really took that to heart and thought, oh, actually, that's probably true to a degree. Um, I was always mindful of, I heard a phrase once which was about the shadow you cast. And it's around, as a leader with everybody or lots of people watching you, you needed to know that how you were feeling or how you were behaving, you would be casting that shadow over numerous people. So I didn't um I didn't behave 100% that way because I think it's really important for people to see when you are happy about things or when you are annoyed about things or upset about things. And there's been points throughout my career where I felt that was, um, necessary. Actually, I probably did become more level. So yeah, I think it's nature and nurture in my case.
How did you become more level? How exactly? Did you start doing something, stop doing something? What was the process to become more level?
Breathing.
Was it?
So I think it was as simple as that. I used to, if anything happened throughout my entire career, I just used to breathe and before I responded. And it's just taking that pause to gather my thoughts, then allowed me to respond on a much more level basis. And and throughout COVID, which is really difficult now to imagine that what we went through. I went on a course to learn all about more about breathing and the different types of breathing.
Oh, you did.
And it was brilliant for something so simple that we all do to stay alive. I think that there's nothing more important than just breathing. And whenever we had things go wrong, because when you work in marketing or when you're managing digital platforms, there's always something, that could go wrong. And I used to say to my team, well, right, okay, let's just breathe and then let's work this through. So, and I can't emphasize that enough. I have, I'm into art, and Yoko Ono used to create artwork around just phrases, but she tended to put them in interesting places. But one of her words was breathe. And I've got business cards with the word breathe on that I got from a Yoko Ono art exhibition. And I hand them out to people that I think need them. And I still carry one in my wallet today.
Do you?
So, but yeah,
Well,
that's how.
I can totally relate to that. And do you mind if I unpack it a little bit more? Because maybe some people listen to this thinking, sounds a bit simple, Michelle. Like, I mean, we're all breathing but what we're talking about here is, I mean, to say I'm breathing is actually wrong. I'm not breathing. It's like me saying I'm beating my heart, I'm digesting my food, I'm circulating my blood, right? The breath breathes itself. I mean, who was if I'm breathing, I'd have to remember to breathe. So I probably would have forgotten a long time ago and keeled over. What happened to Steve? Oh, he died. He forgot to breathe. So the breath is this beautiful part of the vast intelligence that we have in our body that does its thing, right? And of course, we can interrupt the breath. I could decide to breathe more deeply now or more shallowly. I could hold my breath probably to a point where I even past that. But what happens? The body takes back over again and starts breathing. And of course, we're breathing in our sleep and since the second we're born until the day we die, right? So what is it about the breath that's so powerful here? What is it that you've piggybacked? Well, the difference is there's a very big difference between breathing and knowing that you're breathing. And
Yeah,
if you place your attention on the sensation of the breath, and everyone listening or watching this can do this right now, right? Just feel the breath wherever you feel it most strongly. For most people, it's normally in the nostrils or the belly. Those are the two most prominent places. So as I breathe in here now, if I put all my attention here, all of it, nothing else matters. There's no past, no future. Forget all that stuff. And I'm not trying to quiet my mind. I'm not trying to feel peace. I'm not going to do anything. Just raise my alertness super high. And can I breathe and feel it? Where do I feel the breath? How do I know I'm breathing in this moment? I can feel it right at the tip of the nose. What do I feel here? Kind of cool as I breathe in, a bit warm as I breathe out. Then if I get curious about it, there's a tiny gap between the in-breath and the out-breath. And then a tiny gap between the out-breath and the in-breath. And all breaths the same. Maybe, maybe not. But here's what happens. you can't sense your breath like we did then, sense it, not think about it, sense it and think. So the thinking mind quiets when you place all of your attention on the breath. And I know you know this, I'm just explaining it for people. And we
Yeah.
call this conscious breathing, right? So if you're in a very stressful meeting and your team are there and everything else, and everything's chaotic, and we go, let's just breathe, guys, for a second. It's almost like saying, let's just stop thinking for a second. Let's put our minds down for a second, right? Because we can pick them up in a second and use them probably better, more constructively, if our nervous system is in a more regulated state. If we're in a sort of what's it called? Where you shift from, can't think of what it's called now. Come to me in a second. You know, the two states of the autonomic nervous system. And if we're in the kind of rest digest phase of that, our thinking's empowered. Our thinking, that's when we come up with creative and innovative solutions, right? But to do that, the mind needs to be quiet. Ask any great artist how they produce their great work. It's from a very still mind. And then a kind of the creation and innovation kind of uses the mind to express itself. Athletes will call this flow state. It's very normal stuff here.
Huh.
But you've managed to take that and almost implement it in yourself and others. So you've kind of been teaching them meditation, Michelle.
Well, so I wouldn't have known that at the time.
No. So it's
I
instinctive to you though,
think,
was it?
I mean, I don't know whether I went on a course or I started um, yoga. So I had a ruptured disc in 2010, and one of the exercises that I started to do after that to build my core strength up was yoga, and absolutely loved it, and was really conscious then about breathing because you breathe with the different yoga movements.
Mm.
And I just knew that when I was feeling quite anxious, my breaths would be shallower.
Yeah.
And it was like I'm gasping for breath all the time, or
Yeah.
just consciously go
Yeah.
like that. And then when you go into it deeper, when you're really thinking about breathing and taking it right down into your belly, it just calmed everything down.
Mm.
And I think when you are a senior executive, where you get very few moments during the day, and you're going from one meeting to the next meeting to the next meeting, and you're taking big decisions or listening to issues, and then, it runs out of time invariably, you've got your next meeting.
Yeah.
I found that it was taking me too long to get over my previous meeting before I
Right.
moved on to my next one. And if my next meeting was a one-to-one with a direct report or a peer, I was conscious that's a really important session for them. And I just felt that I wasn't, in that moment.
Mm.
And I used to take 2 minutes or 3 minutes in a quiet space, outdoor ideally, and in the summer when the sun's shining, that's easier, just to slow my breathing down, be in the moment. And then often I would say to my direct reports, actually, let's do a walk and talk meeting, meet me outside. So, and I would go from one meeting to outside, breathe, and then they would join me, and then we would walk and talk. And I just, from when I learned that, I just thought that was really, really instrumental then in terms of how I navigated my very busy days. So, and even now I listen, and if hear that somebody's taking really short breaths, I will tend to say, right, let's, just breathe, just take a deep breath, really down into your body and then out. So, so it's a combination of things. I
Mm.
would have learnt it once from somewhere and then taken that into my day-to-day practice.
Right.
Now I
Nice.
do, I continue my yoga. So
Nice.
that's
Yeah.
what worked for me.
And this is another point probably worth making, right? Some people are thinking, oh, I don't like the breath. And whenever if I watch my breath, it makes me feel anxious, it makes me breathe even shorter. Some people aren't so keen on the breath. And of course, there's some people who have had unpleasant experiences or even traumatic experiences in their life that have affected their breath, maybe if they've been choked or if they've been underwater for periods of time, whatever. There are other ways you can quiet your mind, which you beautifully just mentioned, right? So I walk and talk. The reason that may work is anytime you inhabit any sense with your attention, your mind starts to quiet. If you really feel the sun on your face for 2 seconds, this is why people love holidays. The mind starts to quiet. You can't really feel the sun on your face. Watch judges of cooking competitions. When they take a bite of whatever they're judging, all of their attention is in their mouth, all of it. Because to notice the nuance of the flavor and the depth and to assess it and to score it and to mark it, you can't be thinking about what you're going to be doing next weekend and just shoveling stuff in your mouth like most of us, the normal way of eating, right? Or doing your emails at the same time. So they're ultra present. So you can't really taste something and do a whole bunch of thinking in that moment, right? You can have a thought afterwards, oh, that tasted like. So any sense, listening, seeing, touching, tasting, smelling, any of these, when we inhabit our senses with our attention, the thinking mind starts to quiet. And this is at the basis of everything that the people who meditate practice, right? Because they're continually taking consciousness, awareness, whatever you want to call it, attention away from the otherwise incessant stream of thought, which is very easy to get lost in, especially when you're very senior in business. You've got 1,000 things to do. You're probably not getting enough sleep. And then you've got another 1,000 things to do tomorrow, and you're constantly. And if you can have just ways of interrupting your day and stepping out of that mode of being frantic and always on and just stepping out so you almost go from like thinking to not thinking to back in is so helpful.
Yeah, and I think the other things about walking talks, which I was a big fan of for one-to-ones, is you're not facing each other.
Yeah.
So you're walking, and therefore you are completely eradicating any awkwardness about face to face,
Yeah.
which when you're having difficult conversations and
It's a really
and
good
I
point.
used to say, you know, when you're trying to think about why something happened or what we need to do next, and you're walking, you can say, okay, let's think about that for a moment and literally think about it. And when you're walking, you can take that time to then think about it without me saying to you, looking at you, well, let's think about that for the moment, and then having
Yeah.
a really horrific, awkward silence.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So and I'm not saying that at the time I had everything like I knew that some of these benefits of how I fine tune my leadership style have only come with hindsight.
Yeah.
But, I just think that changing your environment, getting outdoors, not facing each other, taking a moment, just breathing, centers you.
Mm.
And, you know, it's, yeah, I think some of that is super easy to introduce to your day and the way that you manage people or manage your business.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a quote about doing this, and I'm going to butcher it really badly. But there's something like it's simple but not easy, or like this is the problem with a lot of this, right? It doesn't sound like rocket science. Everybody hopes and prays that on a podcast like this, someone's going to come up with something so radically new that no one's ever heard of before. Just do this. A lot of it is, and I heard in fact, I was doing a presentation with a brilliant cardiologist, a amazing American guy, a Harvard trained cardiologist, who meditates with his patients if they want to, if they're open to it, right? So he's this beautiful, mindful doctor in the US. His diary's crazy every day, but he takes a moment to center himself, and he will literally breathe with his clients as they commit. And we're on this call for a company that we did a bit of work with. And somebody asked him the question, and they said, when it comes to my heart health, aside from, eating well, sleeping well, drinking enough water, getting enough exercise, da, da, da. Apart from all the obvious things, what else is there? What can you tell me? And this person wanted this big secret, right? That this doctor had hidden from everybody. He's going to say, well, look, I haven't told anybody else this. Eat 5 blueberries a day, whatever the silly thing is, right? And of course, he answered it really well, and he said, well, we say apart from all the obvious things, but how many of us are doing these obvious things? How many millions of people all around the world are doing these obvious things enough that it's positively affecting their heart health, right? And we've got to stop chasing this snake oil. We've got to stop chasing. We can look to more ancient wisdom, certainly when it comes to building our resilience. We've got all these tools. It's about learning them, finding just enough time to practice them, and then seeing the benefits of them.
Yeah, so the one thing that I also heard, and this is true, when babies breathe, so when babies breathe in, their tummy goes out.
Mm,
And then when they breathe out, their tummy goes in.
mm,
As adults, the exact opposite happens. We breathe in and our tummy goes in, and then we breathe out and it goes out. So at some point, as we're growing up, the absolute opposite happens. And if you then start to think, when I breathe in, your belly should expand,
mm,
which is exactly what babies do.
mm.
And it's like, what point do all of a sudden does that change?
Yeah,
So, but you're feeling it may, when you hear that, you think, oh my God, that makes total sense. But for the young parents out there or people that with babies in their families, if you just watch a baby and put your hands on their tummy, when they're breathing in, their tummy expands
yeah,
because all of that air is going into them.
yeah,
So, and it's a real calm breathing practice.
yeah. And there's a beautiful thing. I remember when I first heard this, this kind of blew my mind. Somebody said to me, your body doesn't know the difference between the thought of a disaster and a real disaster, right? So if I'm lying in bed tonight and I worry about, I don't know, I was going to say losing my job or whatever for myself, but let's say somebody is lying in bed, they're worried about losing their job. As soon as that thought comes into your head and you believe it, and you're kind of on this journey of catastrophizing, your body is immediately 100% convinced it's happened, basically. So you get the adrenaline, the cortisol, and everything else, and the body fires up, right? But the good news is we can use that to positive effect, right? So if you're in a really stressful meeting and you decide to just take a few breaths, or really feel your feet on the floor, or really feel your hands in the lap, the kind of tingling right at the tips of the fingers, or you tune into sound. There's loads of ways you can do it. But let's take one of them just to
Yeah.
say the breath. When you do that, you activate the vagus nerve, right? And it's literally telling your body, it's fine, Michelle. We can rest, we can digest, life's good. Now, even if everything's hectic on the surface, you can kind of kid your body, if you like, in that moment by flooding it with signals to say everything's okay. Even if in your mind you're thinking, not sure it is, if you have enough awareness about you to say, back to your just breathe, let's just be present for a second. You're sending all these signals down below, so to speak, to your body to say everything's okay. But so many of us are sending these opposite signals because we live in our heads and we're catastrophizing and everything is a disaster. And you turn the news on, and how much good news do you see? Zero. And you put social media on, and it's all bad news these days, right? And so we're flooding our brains and therefore our bodies with all this negative stuff. Um, but the beautiful thing is we can counter that, right? If the body doesn't know the difference between a thought of a disaster or a real disaster, it doesn't know the difference between you saying everything's okay and whether it is or not. And the people that come into their body and dwell more in their body with their attention, they're much calmer, they're much more centered. They're also going to come up with the creative, innovative ideas. They're also going to excel in whatever they do. They're also going to be active listeners, back to your point. There's so many benefits that come with this stuff.
Yeah, and I think that we do all have a tendency to dwell on the negativity
For
and the
sure.
bad things that happen
Yeah,
because
yeah. I
they
do.
tend to stay longer in our minds.
Yeah.
And if something's gone wrong once, well, the chances are that it could go wrong again, despite the fact all the mitigations that you put in
Yeah.
place. And I think if you change the order of the conversation around what's gone great, and then
Mm,
you talk about, you know, what was it that went great? Why did that go great? What was done differently? And then the other things that follow that that you might need to update on, you then instantly start to think about actually, well, how could I have done those things differently? Oh, blimey, I didn't do what I did that time to make that great this time, and then that went wrong. And I think there was I when I was like thinking about what I could share today with you, I was thinking about like key moments in my career. And there was so everyone digital technology and digital platforms, and Santander went through a process of replatforming all of their big digital assets like the website, the mobile app. And we launched a new website, and it was, probably about 12 months, 18 months in the making. We've rebuilt it all, we've done all the customer journeys. And then the go, no go decision was about, I don't know, 5 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday, which was our quietest traffic day. And we went around the room and everybody updated on their bit of it. And then the program manager said, right, is it ever got a go or a no go then? And the whole room went quiet. And then I suddenly thought, oh my God, it's my decision. And actually, everybody's waiting for me. And I got all tingles and I was thinking, oh my God, Santander gets millions of visitors to their website every day, probably more now. What happens if this all goes wrong? And then I again just thought, calmed and thought, we've just, Michelle, every one of your leads has just given their updates. You know, the customer experience is great, the journeys all work, the tech all works, the testing's all done. And then I just said, it's a go. And it like I still feel all tingly now
Yeah.
just thinking about that moment. But that was probably one of the biggest decisions I made because the impact of that going wrong was
Yeah.
huge.
Yeah.
But I just had trust in that we'd done everything right. We'd done all the testing. Um, but when I realized came down to me, it was like, oh my God. So, but yeah, and there's probably been other moments when you were in charge of big programs. Um, but yeah, it's about that, just taking that moment, quieten the doubts, and just trusting the process that you've been through,
Yeah.
and that you have a rock star team that would have done everything because nobody wants it to go wrong. So, but yeah, it's it's just that I was, reviewing everything I've done over the years. I just thought, oh, blimey, remember when that happened? I have also, did a new mobile app update, which didn't go so well for something that, arguably we couldn't have found out before. And then I had to phone my boss to say, all right, we need to roll back. And roll back is when you go back to the previous version of your mobile app.
Yeah.
And he was in a big meeting and his phone started flashing Michelle. And he excused himself because I never phoned him. And he thought, oh my word, something massive must have happened.
Yeah.
But again, it was just calmly saying, right, okay, what happened? Could we have known about this? What are our options? And then making the call to say, just to let you know, we're rolling back the app. Um, we know what we need to do to relaunch it, but we've got to roll back. So, um, and I don't know how I could have continued for 30 years if, I couldn't find a way of getting myself comfortable with making those big decisions.
Yeah.
So,
No, it'd have been too much, wouldn't it?
yeah,
So what does, just one
absolutely.
more question before I ask you the quick fire ones. Um, what would you find stressful in your life? What kind of thing would keep you awake at night? So if it's not, because when you were saying that and you said you're sitting around the room, you got your whole team, and you're like suddenly, oh my God, it's like it's my decision, go or no go. I'd have been thinking that 3 weeks before. I go to bed every night thinking, oh my God, in 3 weeks I have to say no, I'll go. It's my decision. So beautiful that you was just, you're sleeping and just in this moment, okay, you had the presence and just to say, okay, I've got all the information, it's a go. Lovely. So is there anything, what would keep you awake at night, Michelle? What would stress you if it's not like a big decision in a organization like that? Or maybe it's not.
I I'm actually a really good sleeper,
Are
and
you?
I'm a bit of an advocate of sleeping as well. I do think sleep is well-being 101. Always starts with sleeping.
Mm,
But sometimes when you have a tiebreaker, not a tiebreaker, an icebreaker question, if you were going to win a gold medal or anything, what would it be? Sleeping.
would it?
I would win a gold medal for sleeping. Um, and I think the things that stress me out are the health of my friends and family. And yeah, the people that I care most about going through difficult times. So
Yeah.
it's not actually impacting me. Most things that impact me, I can cope with, or but it's
Okay.
health issues that my loved ones are going through that I can't do anything about. But what I can do is focus on, right, okay, what can we do to make sure that whilst we're going through this, I'm putting enough things in place to help them cope with it. So, um, and then for me, it's if I'm approaching something new. So traveling around Southeast Asia for 7 months is quite stressful when you're, moving from one country to the next, going through immigration,
Yeah.
learning a new language, learning a new exchange rate, which given that I worked in banking for 30 years, the fact that I can't get my head around exchange rates is unbelievable. And I won't tell you how much I paid for Cadbury's Dairy Milk in an airport in Cambodia,
Oh,
thinking I'd got
really?
a bargain.
Oh, really?
But it's just be kind to myself,
Yeah.
and
That's
just
important.
taking the, yeah, just,
That's
you
important.
know, just be kind to yourself. You
Yeah.
can't possibly know everything. And, you know, what's the worst that can happen? You know, and when I speak to my friends and now it's kind of like, well, I've got this big meeting and I'd go, well, what's different about this big meeting then? Oh, it's with all these, really important people from the States. And I say, well, haven't you done that before? Is there somebody different in the room?
Mm,
And well, no, there isn't. Well, and what you're presenting on, well, you've lived and breathed that project for 6 months now. And I thought you said it was going well. And I know it's kind of, I don't do it in a flippant way where they
no.
say, oh, but if you unpack it just step by step,
Yeah.
actually you're leaving with the impression that, actually I have presented to this group of people before and the project is going well. And I've got a good news story. And there's one bit that's not going quite so well, but I've put enough things in place to get that back on track. Um, you know, and if you do have to give people bad news, but taking it back to a business environment, if your project is behind time and it's not going to launch on time, as long as you can show all the steps that you've taken and why you're postponing a launch decision, and all of that makes perfect sense, nobody in the right mind wants something to launch if it's not ready,
No.
So um, and I genuinely think that, you know, in the vast majority of times, people are on your side
Mm,
and, they want you to do well. And it's brilliant being back now because, you know, people in my life have had to cope without me being there. I've been on the end of a phone call, but I haven't been there to do things.
yeah.
And I spoke to my best friend this morning and she's got an issue tomorrow. And I said, oh, well, why didn't you just ask me? I can do that for you. And she went, oh God, I've got so used to you not being here that I just didn't think about it. It's brilliant that you're back now. So yeah, ask for help and more people will give you
Yeah.
help than, you can imagine. So if you're stressing about something, who in your world could help you with it?
Mm,
I used to, I know I'm going on a bit, but when I was younger and starting my career, if I got asked to do something new, the first thing I thought was, right, who's done that before? who can help me? Whereas too many people get asked to do something and they set off on their own
Yeah.
and then try it. It's like, well, why didn't you ask them? They literally did that about 2 years ago, and you will do it different and your outcome will probably be different.
Yeah.
But the learnings that you can get from other people based on their generosity of wanting to share and help, like, why would you not want that?
Definitely. Yeah. What is next for you, Michelle?
So next is I'm having a real conversation with myself about what is next.
Mm.
Um, I am being really mindful about what I do want to do. I want to do good. I still want to change the world in a positive way, in whatever way I can. I'm loving having the freedom to spend time with my friends and family. I do want to travel again, but I still think that based on a successful 30-year career in digital and data, I've probably still got something to offer. So, yeah, I'm just thinking about what that might look like and how much of my time I commit to that, leaving myself time to do the things I really want to do as well. So, um, but I'm being kind to myself while I'm doing it. And after this, I'm going to get up in my allotment
Oh, lovely.
outside in nature, planting things. So,
Perfect.
yeah,
Lovely.
that's that's what I'm up to next.
Nice. We'll finish with some really quick fire questions. Morning or evening person?
Morning.
Emails or phone calls?
So, um, not emails. I would have said WhatsApp, but I'm
Okay.
loving speaking to people on the phone and the amount of people that are phoning me now that I'm back and I can do that. So, but normally it's a quick WhatsApp message. I've got some friends that email me to invite me to dinner, and then like they'll message me about 3 days later, say, "Oh, I know you're busy, but um, are you around for dinner?" I went, "Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Well, I emailed you about it. What, you emailed me about dinner?" Emails is about one to one. I just said, I've always thought, email me if it's not urgent, WhatsApp me, and I'll probably respond to that within like 24 hours. Call me, and I know we're at like a real disaster, DEFCON 5 situation.
Okay. This is going to be an interesting answer based on all your travels. Favorite food?
Thai.
Is it?
I love Thai food. And yeah, I've got a friend who's fantastic at cooking it,
Oh,
and
really?
I'm going to learn how to cook it too.
Yeah, I love Thai too.
Yeah.
Favorite book?
That's a difficult one, because unless I've really hated it, I tend to enjoy all the books that I read mainly because my friend recommends it and she knows me super well.
Okay.
But in a business context, um, Seven Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. Love, love, love it. I read it when I was at university and I based workshops and offsites around each habit. And it's as true today as it ever has been.
Yeah.
It's so simple, the seven habits. So, but actually, I owe a lot to Stephen Covey for the success I've had in my career.
Guilty pleasure.
Reality TV.
Is it? You want to
Yeah,
share a
I'm
special show
watching.
or not?
Yeah, I mean, I'm watching At Home with the Viewers at the minute.
How are you?
And yeah,
Do you know, I watched that because no, you go first. Why did that appeal to you? Because it appealed to me for one specific reason.
well, because um, I just think he's a phenomenal character.
Yeah.
And I didn't know it was on, but I've just watched his recent comeback fights because a friend of mine is a mad fan. And
Mm.
then I came home and I was flicking through Netflix and it said At Home with the the Tysons came up. And I just thought, oh, right. I literally watched 3 episodes back to back nonstop. And I hate myself for loving it, but I love it. So it's just don't know, those media obsessed warts and all showers. I'm horrified by for, but I just love it. Why do you like it?
I find him, I watched it for him, and I find him a really interesting character, particularly around his mental health. I love that he speaks out
Yeah,
about his mental health. This is the biggest, toughest guy, one of the biggest, toughest guys on the planet. He's a heavyweight. If anybody doesn't know, he's one of the heavyweight champions of the world. Um, so he's physically a big, very strong man who can box at an elite level. But he talks very openly about how hollow material success is, about having millions of pounds means nothing, about being a VIP wherever you go means nothing. If there's no passion, if there's no, he was talking, he wrote, I don't know if you got to this bit in it yet. He wrote a really lovely poem that I love that his wife didn't like. It's kind of, I think maybe later on in that series,
yeah, I
um,
haven't got to it yet.
about who am I? And there's real depth to that. Who is he beyond the label of Tyson Fury, the boxer? And you and I talked about Harriet, our friend Harriet, going into a retreat, and when you strip away all these things, when you go back to basics, who is Tyson Fury beyond the heavyweight champion of the world? Who is he when he retires? These are big questions, aren't they? Who is he when the phone stops ringing and they stop asking him for to come and fight this person for X million pounds? Who are you then? And where does your sense of self come from? And how content are you in yourself? And there's so many tragic stories. Ricky Hatton, most recently, if you're,
Oh, I know.
of people who, and it must be incredibly hard, to, I don't, maybe somebody like, well, your average person, I guess, doesn't experience the massive high that a brain of somebody like him would, to walk out in front of 80,000 people and box and have your arms raised or score a winning penalty for England or whatever. This euphoric moment that has been in his head. And then there's how do you recreate this? But I love how open Fury is about his mental health, particularly with men. I want boys to watch that and realize it's okay. It's okay to feel sad. It's okay to need help. It's okay to be anxious. You can be anxious and be the toughest guy on the planet. You can be anxious and live in a mansion. You can be scared and have every car you want. And 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 what Tyson Fury's got, I think he said this is in the thing. He said there's actually quite very few people in the world who get to the point where they have everything they need and more and still don't feel fulfilled. And what happens then? Because so many of us are thinking, oh, Michelle, if I just get that house, that's the missing bit. If I just get that car, that's the missing bit. If I just get that designer XYZ, if I just go on that cruise, if I just afford that yacht, if I just get there. And if you spend your entire life just trying to get there, in some ways it's kind of easier than getting there and realizing, do you know what? It didn't do it. And now where do I go?
Yeah, so I love that he's doing that as well. And I haven't got into all of it yet, but there was a tiny bit last night where he goes on a road trip with some men in his life, including his dad, and he talks quite openly about um his mental health, and he almost apologizes to his dad because his dad kind of like dismisses it a bit
Mm,
because and then they put it down to a generational thing, and
yeah,
men of his dad's age just didn't discuss it. They just got on with things.
yeah.
And I like the interaction between the two of them. And I just think, a lot of good can come from him talking openly about it. Um, and and yeah, so it did come back, didn't he? So that fight recently that he's had and won, but you do think, right, okay, how does somebody that's reached those heights recreate that differently and still get the same level of self-contentment out of it? So
That's the
but
great
yeah,
word,
and
contentment.
I do think, yeah, I do think men need as much help as they can get in terms of knowing that it's okay to not be okay.
No doubt. Yeah. I mean, the thing, I'd love to work with someone like Tyson Fury, actually, but I think a lot of people don't realize that the peace they're seeking is already inside you. It's just covered up. It's not in the external thing. It's not in the thing you can buy or rent or live in. If you can take away all the noise and all the materialism of the world and everything that promises to fulfill you, there's a peace buried very deeply in some people and very covered up in many people. But if you can start to access that, That's what will lead you to contentment. I love that you use the word contentment, not happiness, because happiness is fleeting, right? So who are these people, right? If you look at the most enlightened beings on this planet, they're content and they don't have much. When they study the happiest people in the world, they don't look at the Times Rich list and go, "Can we interview Musk and Peter Thiel?" No, they go to monasteries and they analyze the brains of these people. These people have got nothing and they've shaved their heads they all look the same, so to speak, and they all wear the same thing. And this is whether if you really want to study happiness and contentment, look at these people because they're beautifully content. It's not the super rich. There's a great thing in the Telegraph the other day about how unhappy a lot of the super rich are because of a load of reasons. But I find all this fascinating.
I've seen I've seen some of the happiest whilst I've been traveling, I've seen some of the happiest people I've ever met, and they have nothing,
Yeah,
you know.
I can believe that.
And to see children, with they don't have mobile phones, they don't
Mm,
have nothing, they don't have changes of clothes. They're putting a t-shirt and shorts on, they're going swimming in those t-shirts and shorts, and then they're wearing them for the rest of the day, and they could not be happier.
yeah.
And I think the one thing I've learned is I've traveled around for 7 months with a backpack, and you need so little to be so happy, and yeah, I think that's what's going to stay with me as well. So, but yeah, content. I'm really content.
Lovely. That's it. You cracked it. Last question. If you could invite anyone over for dinner, alive or dead, who would it be?
Michelle Obama.
Oh, really?
I'm a big Michelle
Yeah,
Obama
I like
fan.
her.
Yeah, I'm a bigger Barack Obama, but actually, I'd love her perspective
Mm,
on being the wife of a president and what she thinks of today
mm,
and what's going on.
yeah,
So, yeah, massive Michelle Obama fan.
good choice.
And she's got the same name, so
Exactly. She's doing well there. Um, Michelle, thank you so much for joining me on Decoding Time in 15 minutes. It was more than 15 minutes, but it's been such a great conversation. Thank you so much for joining me.
brilliant. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.